everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast and Merry Christmas. And this is our final recap of the Hallmark 2023 Christmas season and just 2023 Hallmark in general. So very exciting. We did it. we recapped all of them. It's amazing. We're talking about Miracle in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And this is our Dayspring movie for this year. And I'm film critic Grace Wagner, and Liz Johnson's here. And thank you so much for coming on and talk with us.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I am so delighted.
So you're an author, and we've had you on a couple of times. And you recently had a new book, correct?
Yeah. So my most recent book came out in August, and it's called Summer in the Spotlight. And it's a great book for if it's a little chilly where you are and you want to feel kind of warm and fuzzy. It'll give you all the warm and fuzzies. And it's set on Prince Edward Island, which is just my favorite place. So it's a fun story.
Cool. Is it part of a series, or is it standalone?
It is part of a series, but it will also stand alone.
Okay.
So yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll have a link if people want an affiliate link down below if people want to check out the book. So that will be fun. All right. Well, have you gotten to watch many of the movies this season, the Christmas movies?
I've watched kind of a handful this season. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely behind. And I'm going to blame that on my writing schedule. But I have gotten to watch several this season and really enjoyed them.
Yeah. Do you think it's been a pretty good season of what you've seen?
I do. I really do. I feel like, there's a lot of memes out there that sort of are like, joking about like, oh, it's the same plot line. But I feel like this season I've seen a lot of really unique stories.
Yeah.
And really kind of different takes on family and friendship and, different kind of focus. And it's not just the woman coming from the big city back to her hometown. Yeah. There's a lot of other things going on. And so,
they have been trying, I think, this season to integrate different parts of Christmas than we normally see. Yeah. And that's hard to do. I mean, because we've seen it all. But like having one movie had the Icelandic book flood, which I'd never heard of, and that was fun. And another movie was about Advent and that tradition. So I think that they're trying to dig a little deeper, which I appreciate.
Yeah. I really like that too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So today we're talking about Miracle in Bethlehem, PA, and this is directed by Jeff Beasley, who has been busy. 2023, Jeff Beasley, TV movies. He directed just this year. He directed The Hammer, Made for Each Other, Never Been Kissed, The Santa Summit, and Miracle in this movie, Miracle in Bethlehem.
Wow.
So yeah, the man gets things done.
That's a busy year.
Yeah, it's a busy year. We never talked to him. I would love to, though. We definitely would like to. This is written by Kim Daughtry and Laura Campo-Lennon. Stars Benjamin Ayres and Lara Vandervoort. And the summary is: just before Christmas, Marianne adopts a baby girl to raise alone. She and the infant spend the Christmas stuck in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, due to bad weather. Her only choice when the inn is full is to stay with Joe, the brother of the innkeeper. So first of all, before we dive in, I guess, what is your feeling in general of faith-based films? Are you a fan, or are you more mixed on the genre? Where are you at on that?
Oh, that's such a good question. I feel like I am. I generally watch faith-based films when they're available because I want to encourage that kind of content, and I want to support that. Certainly, there is a spectrum of like production quality in faith-based films that is, and everything from storytelling all the way through the actual production pieces and the acting. So I think I tend to watch them. I tend to be pretty critical in my own mind, but in general, I'm very supportive because I want to. I want there to be more content out there that includes faith conversations.
Yeah. I am, I think, more accepting than maybe the typical critic out there that is pretty tough on the genre. But it's very tricky. I understand why they're tough on the genre, though, because it's a very difficult market because it's hard because what is so personal and your conversion story is it's very meaningful to the person that's going through it,
Right.
but it can feel very cloying and preachy to the person not going through it. And it's very difficult to tell that story in a way that feels sort of authentic and real. And I do think there are some people who are doing a very good job. Like I think the Erwin brothers, their movies, something like I Can Only Imagine, which is about flawed characters, flawed people, their faith journey. And I think it works much better when they are trying to tell just one person's life, their story, as opposed to trying to start a ministry.
Right.
Something like a War Room, or where literally at the end of War Room they have a title card comes up. If you want to start your War Room, here's the number to call, here's the website to visit. That it's really more like a Sunday school lesson than it is an actual movie and a story and a narrative and everything like that. And so I think that's the challenge. But yeah, for a long time with Hallmark, I felt like they kind of wanted to dabble into the faith-based market. They wanted to kind of to attract those viewers, but they didn't really want to make a faith-based film. So they would do these God wink movies, for example, that talked the talk kind of, but you would never really see characters praying. You would never see it was like they wanted to be sort of halfsies, and that I for the most part didn't care for. And I do feel like these Dayspring movies have been stronger in that regard. There's still, there's a little nitpicking, some things I will say about this one that feels that's not quite there, but I think it's in the right direction. So it's an interesting genre. And I did like this. If people are looking for faith-based film, I did enjoy Journey to Bethlehem this holiday season. It is it's not only a musical, but it's like a musical, like very theatrical, very over the top. But I really enjoyed that. And some people it'll be a little bit, some people that are strict traditionalists as far as your adaptations. It's not that it takes but I'm not strict in that regard. But I thought it was clever, it was interesting, it was creative. And I like that one, so people should check that out. I think that's good.
Cool. I haven't seen that one yet, but I definitely I think it's out of the theaters now. So
I think that Hallmark fans will particularly like it because it's focusing on the love story between Joseph and Mary, which makes sense because he really was. He could have abandoned her. He probably in that time, and he should have under their customs, but he chose to. I mean, he had the angel visit, but still he chose to marry her and to, love her. And there is I think there's something there, and they really lean into that, which I enjoy.
That's sweet.
Yeah. It was good.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
Anyway, let's talk about Miracle in Bethlehem. Overall, what did you think of the movie? Did you like it?
I liked it a lot. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I felt like there was such great chemistry between the leads. And I really like I felt there were so many great romantic moments. And as a romance author, like I love that. I just was like, oh, like the almost kisses and the interrupted kisses and all these things where it just was like, oh, we're so close. And they're trying so hard to sort of like, oh, their attraction came so quickly. And yet at the same time, like it just felt really authentic to me.
Yeah.
So I like that.
I agree. Overall, I enjoyed it. I thought it was very sweet and I liked their chemistry as well. And I think what really won me over to the movie though was that last closing scene between her and her mom, and when she says that that the hard was worth it.
Yes.
And that she never looked at it as like a burden. And you were the best part of my life. You were worth the hard.
Yes.
That was some good writing there. And even just reading it again, I tear up a little bit. I thought that was very good.
Yeah. I as I was watching it, I was like, come on, please make up with your mom. Please make up with your mom, like the whole time. And I really loved that was sort of like that was the resolution that we were all sort of cheering for. We want the romance too, but the resolution was really for her to come to understand, like, she could do it on her own, but she didn't have to. And that's like the joy of community. That's the joy of family, is that, yeah, you can be strong and independent and be able to care for a baby, but you don't have to do it on your own. And I think to me, that's what Christmas is all about, really, is, like we talk about Christmas, and Emmanuel was Jesus's coming, and that translates to God with us. Like we're not alone, like God is with us. And that's the cool thing for me, is like, so I loved that part of it.
And
I thought that was great.
Yeah. And just the whole, that's just a beautifully written statement of you were worth the hard.
Yes.
Like,
yes,
that's beautiful. I mean, you think of so many things in life, that was, difficult. But it was worth the hard. It was really good. And so, she starts out, she's adopting this baby by herself. And she's like the nicest lawyer in the history of Hallmark.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Like as a writer, like I'm sure you're familiar with the Save the Cat book. Like, like it's sort of an outline of how to write a screenplay or a novel. But it's like the first thing you have to do is you have to show that your character is so likable. And that moment where she like gives, doesn't take her pay,
it's pro bono.
From this young mom. I just was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, that is so sweet.
It was very sweet. And we do find out that her ex-husband is engaged, and evidently he ended up with somebody half her age, which is like, wow, he was really robbing the cradle there.
Yes. Like, I think she said something about him being like, or about this other woman being 21. And I thought, is she in her 40s? She doesn't be, but
I guess,
I'm not sure.
Let's see how old Lara Vandervoort is. So she's 39. So that checks out.
Okay.
Yeah, it checks out.
I don't know. I would not have guessed that.
But his new wife is very fertile.
Yes.
And she's been approved for over a year. And I mean, they were kind of making it seem like, that was a long time to wait. That's not that long. No. It's especially being single. I can imagine that. I mean, I've known people who've been on the list for years and years and years and never gotten a baby. So, I mean, if that's what you're really wanting is a brand new, baby, it's hard. But she had been approved, and he's definitely shown. It is kind of funny that they use video games as like code for he's a slacker.
Yes.
And at first, like, I did not think that this girlfriend, I did not think it was the girlfriend. I thought she seemed young to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
like,
And there were a few things with the timeline I was trying to figure out. Like, she said that she had seen him perform 5 years ago, but then they had only been dating 6 weeks. And I was like,
I don't know how they got if they
Yeah.
how they met, but he gets dumped at the beginning, and that was a kind of a miss for me. I did not need to have this ex, especially when she comes back and there's all this like conflict. I hated that. That was rolling its eyes. We did not need it. It was not necessary. There was enough conflict going on that you did not need to have this woman come in and being like, what are you doing with this other lady? And blah, blah, blah. And you're a loser.
Yes, she was. I don't think she added a lot to the story at all. This other character, and we kept, and I kept thinking, like, why is it your business? Like that.
Yeah, you would never do that. You would never storm in to like. I mean,
if you only dated for 6 weeks and you've been broken up for a week, like,
it's
like, no.
Yeah, that was not good. I also am a little mixed, I guess, on some of the faith elements of the movie, in the sense of I don't think this movie needed to be in Bethlehem. I mean, having it be Miracle in Bethlehem and there be no room at the inn was a little cringe. And also somebody on Twitter, they were posting that so the names of the characters, you have Joe is Joseph, Marianne, Mary, Myrtle, Myrrh, Frankie, Frankincense, friend, he has a friend with the last name Shepherd, and the dog is named Donkey.
Yes.
Much.
It was, there were a few things where it was like, oh, that's a little on the nose, maybe. But in watching it, that didn't distract me from enjoying.
It wasn't a deal breaker or anything like that. But I also feel like it would be nice if they told like a more specific faith story, like that we got and we did get that in Heaven Down Here, where it was a pastor is the lead character in there. So they are trying, but I kind of felt a little bit in this movie that it was like, oh, just show a picture of a cross, everybody will know it's a film about Christians, that it was a little like tokenism in that way,
Interesting.
There was a bunch of just like random pictures of crosses.
That's true. And her cross necklace, like she would grab that frequently. But I thought that they did a lot of the faith elements really, really well. I was especially like struck when she, like at the beginning, when she's waiting and she's wanting a baby so badly, and when she looks at the cross, she doesn't pray for a baby, she doesn't ask for a baby, she prays for patience. And I just thought, like, for me, that was such a good like reminder, like the things that we often like, we're praying for the things we want rather than the courage and the strength and the patience to wait until God's timing. So I
do agree. I think that the prayer aspects of the movie was the strongest part of the faith-based aspects of the film. And one of the stronger aspects of the film. I really liked that you had a group prayer over the meal. I can't think of when I've seen that in a Hallmark movie. That was very nice and very well done, and it added to the message of kind of community and feeling that the movie had. And so I thought that was good. And then also you see her not just in that first scene where she was needing patience, but throughout the movie she prays. And for strength to be able to stay awake and to be able to and just the whole concept of this movie, of her being sort of learning that she can do it, that she can take care of this baby, but also learning to lean on people, was just a very nuanced and sweet message for this movie, I think.
I think so too. And I think maybe one of the things that I really liked about the faith message in this movie was that there wasn't a big conversion scene, because I think, like you said earlier, there's like, that is such a personal thing. And for the person who's not experiencing that, sometimes it feels a little cringe. But for the person who is experiencing that, it's so special. And so in this case, for me, it just was really nice that it was like, both of these main characters had some things to learn and some, like, they have a story arc, and, you know, that they need to get to a new place in their lives. And at the same time, it didn't require, like, both of them came from a place of faith at the start. And so it didn't require like a big conversion of like, oh, I need to, like, you know, like, yes, maybe I need some changes in my life, but it doesn't mean that I need to start over again or something.
Yeah. We'd like to take a second to thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's author Jennifer Snow and her book, An Alaskan Christmas. In Alaska, it's always a white Christmas, but the sparks flying between two reunited friends could turn into red hot in best-selling author Jennifer Snow's An Alaskan Christmas. If there's one gift Erica Sheraton does not want for Christmas, it's a vacation. Ordered to take time off, the workaholic surgeon reluctantly trades in her scrubs for a ski suit and heads to Wild River, Alaska. Her friend Cassie owns a tour company that offers adventures to fit every visitor, but nothing compares to the adrenaline rush Erica feels on being reunited with Cassie's older brother, Reed Reynolds. Gone is the buttoned-up girl Reed remembers. His sister's best friend has blossomed into a strong, skilled, confident woman. She's exactly what his search and rescue team needs and everything he didn't know he craved. The gulf between his life in Wild River and her big city career is wide, but it's no match for a desire powerful enough to melt two stubborn hearts. So this holiday season, get your steamy, spicy rom-com fix with An Alaskan Christmas from author Jennifer Snow. And you can find it wherever you purchase your holiday reads or using the affiliate link below. Yeah, I mean, I think they did a pretty good job of making the movie palatable to faith and non-faith audiences. I don't think this would turn off most people that like the Hallmark dramas. But I think the Daystream movies in general have been a step in the right direction. And I also just personally, I kind of glad that they're doing them because, you know, GAC is sort of acted like they own the faith-based market and that everybody's just going to watch their movies. And I'm just kind of glad that Hallmark has been like, no, we can play that game too.
Yeah.
You're not the only game in town.
I understand that, you know, as a corporation that they, you know, Hallmark has to think in terms of like, who's our audience and who are we trying to reach? And I'm glad that they're saying like, hey, we recognize that our audience wants movies that are not just sweet, but are faith-based and that, you know, involve sort of that, like that tell an excellent story, but that also tell stories that include that faith element. So,
I mean, if you're going to have 41 movies in a season, have a couple. Let's have a variety. Why not?
Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think these have all been much stronger than any of the Godwink movies. So,
Yes. I think I only saw the first Godwink movie, but definitely this was stronger than that.
So what do you think of him as a character? Did you find him like charming? Did you like I said, they sort of set him up as like, oh, he's the video game player. I don't know.
Right. I did. At first, I was a little turned off. I was like, oh, no, not a slacker. Like he felt like, you know, like the 40-year-old guy who's living in his mom's basement.
Well, and he was rocking the quarantine chic, you know, with like the scruff and the long hair and stuff like that. It's like, what is this, 2020?
I know. I was like, oh, no. But but I mean, very quickly. Okay. So at first I didn't know if he had a job and I was very turned off by that because I am pro people like have a career, have a passion, have something, you know, don't, you know,
or be striving to find, you know, something.
Right.
Yeah.
Be looking, anyway. And so then to see, oh no, wait, he runs his dad's business and he like goes and rescues people, you know, with his truck when it's snowing. And that's, you know, that was great. So I loved that. Okay, quickly that answered my question of does he have a job? But then even that he like was like, you know, had some new logos that he was working on for the shop. And I just was like, oh, I love that. Like that was investment and like he wants it to grow and he's not really sure he might not be sure how to do that, but he's working towards
Yeah.
something.
And they made him very endearing. Like immediately him like, she just said prefer not get pizza. So we're going to get pizza. That means we can get
Right.
pizza, you know, with his nephew and him, he was very charming in the movie. And he's like, you look like you need a cold one. And there's apple juice and
his relationship with his dog, like, you know, like he just like, I mean, you gotta love like a good dog dad who he was just loving on his dog. I think for me, like the moment where I was like, oh, I'm smitten with him is when it's not great to steal a baby from the bassinet and not tell the mom what you've done. But when he came in and got Natalie in the morning when she
was dancing
and was
with
dancing,
the baby, it was really cute.
Oh my gosh. I was
very
like,
sweet.
I was like, okay, that's a swoony moment right there.
Yeah. And I know some people were like, oh, it's so fast. It's so fast. And why would you let like a total stranger, you know, like take your baby or whatever? But I feel like when you're that tired as you would be, and when you're in that situation, I don't know, I feel like you would just be like, I think you would trust somebody pretty quickly.
Yeah. I thought that too. I had a moment, and it's probably because I like watching Dateline and other stuff like that, where I was like, don't go home with stranger.
Yeah, I mean, it could have become a thriller. There's no question.
But but sort of like having like his sister's seal of approval, like, you know, like, oh, it's safe to go with him. And then also just like the situation. And then also you know, it's a Hallmark. So
I think that, so the way that they were portraying her ex, that he seemed like the worst and really superficial, but he did not seem like the kind of person, the way they were talking about him, that like not having a baby would be a deal breaker. Like that was just kind of, he left her because she couldn't get pregnant.
Yeah.
I was like, that does not sound like the kind of person who's marrying the 21-year-old intern.
Right. And
but
we never got to meet him.
So we never got to meet him, and it wasn't a partnership. We know that, and but the thing that was interesting, I think, about the movie is that she was terrified of becoming her mother, and even though she loved her mother, she had a lot of complex emotions about that, and also being afraid of being judged by her mother.
Right.
You know, and you would think that like a single mom, the person she's going to reach out to is her mother, but she had this. So it was a pretty complex, interesting character for a Hallmark movie, I would say.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I thought that the dynamics were a lot deeper than we often see, and that those relationships were much more complex, both with her and also with her baby, and then even with, you know, Joe.
Yeah. And so she's going to leave, but then the car won't start. You know, that's the thing. I think that I haven't found love because I have such reliable transportation.
I'm pretty
that's
sure
the problem.
It is. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Oh, me too. That's probably my problem.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that before, but
and her, I mean, his sister comes over and he's like, his sister comes over and she's like, it's clean, it's organized. What is happening? That was funny.
I super loved that you could sort of see, like, I mean, all the symbolism there of like, as his house gets cleaner, it's like his heart and his mind are cleaner. Like he's able to sort of like move through the grief and let that fog lift. And as that lifts, then it shows up in his house. And I was like,
because when you're living alone, like it is harder to have sort of the motivation sometimes to try and just make it nice for yourself. You know, it's like, oh, I can just keep doing other stuff, you know, or I've got so much else. It's easy to push that back.
Yeah.
And it's also just kind of overwhelming to do it all by yourself, you know, that was it was cute. And I thought it
was cute that like she did the dishes her first morning there, and he was sort of like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? It wasn't like a big deal. It just was like, she was like, well, I can help. And I think again that spoke to the sort of that community storyline, that sort of like understanding and theme of you don't have to do it on your own.
They cleaned up, both of them cleaned up nice. They looked beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wrote down a note to myself. I was laughing so hard. I was like, whoever's parties these are, like, these are way fancier than my family's parties.
Yeah. Right.
My family shows up, and if you're wearing jeans, we're doing pretty good.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
majority
No,
are
it's true.
wearing pajamas.
You would expect it to be a little bit more low key for Bethlehem, Pennsylvania,
Right.
but they look beautiful, and and so that was fun. I don't know if I can approve of Ben Ayers' Fred Astaire impression. I don't know what was going on there.
Terrible. That was real bad, but I think it was supposed to be bad, which I was thankful for.
I was like, has he seen Holiday Inn? What is this voice?
Right. Right.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
So she becomes the hero of everything because she figures out the tax law.
Yep.
Like I said, she's like the best lawyer ever.
Yes.
And for a Hallmark movie, and she figures out that, of course, their barn is like a historic building, and
then it was like, then it made sense why he had given her the history of the barn earlier, and like all these things came into play. As soon as he said, like, oh, we're having tax law issues, I was like, oh, she's a lawyer, she's gonna fix it. Like, she'll figure it out.
Yeah. And his mom's like, you're an absolute saint.
Yes.
It's very sweet.
Yeah, very sweet.
And then we get the family meal, in the family prayer, which I really enjoyed. And they ask Joe to carve the turkey, and the brother-in-law's like, no, that was funny.
Yes.
That was good. And it looked like a classic, like more Midwest, but classic. It looked like a classic, like small town kind of homey meal. Like they had like Jello and ambrosia salad, and like they're really leaning into that.
Yes, but I think they had a ham on there too.
Ham and a turkey.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is quite the spread.
Yeah. Good.
I was like, did Frankie cook all of this while she's, 7 months pregnant or whatever?
Right. And then they have white. I did appreciate that they had like a true white elephant gift exchange, because a lot of times in these Hallmark movies, I'm like, do you understand what a white elephant exchange is? Because usually white elephant is like gag gifts and a little bit silly, right? And like in Road to Christmas, which I love, they're like giving out iPads and stuff. I'm like, what is this? No, this is not a white elephant. My go-to for a white elephant party is I usually buy those Harry Potter jelly beans.
Oh yes. The Birdie Bots. Yes.
Yeah. They're like gross.
Mm-hmm.
So cause I feel like it's like a little gross and kind of fun, but not also, like too gross.
Right.
And it's not just some like piece of junk that they're gonna,
Right. Yeah.
I feel like it's a pretty good one. Yeah. And then they had all these games. They did charades and ring toss and stuff like that. It was fun.
I loved that. I love those. Those scenes, like, just so cute, and like it just felt like real family. Like the way they were laughing together, and the way that they were, and the way that she was included, and not like sometimes you see these and it's like the outsider is sort of sitting on the outside, like kind of watching and looking in. And this time she felt like she was so much a part of that family already. And I loved that.
Yeah. And sometimes that just happens in life, I think. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just meet somebody and you feel just an immediate kinship to that person. Yes. I've had that with people that I've interviewed, that it's like, I feel like we are best friends, and we're just talking over Zoom. And not everybody, of course, everybody for the most part is super sweet and nice, but there are those people that you just feel like, wow, I just have chemistry with this person.
Right.
And I think that's what she was feeling.
Yeah.
And so then, she says that I haven't laughed that long in a long time. And he says, you should do it more often. It lights up the room. It was very swoony, sweet. It makes me feel really good when you laugh. It's very sweet.
Sweet.
And maybe you just bring it out in me. And that's what this is when the ex-girlfriend comes over, and I just hated that whole thing. It was awful.
Yeah.
I don't know why there was no need for an inciting incident. You just didn't need it. Like she could have just left, and she was leaving and she didn't live there. Like there was no need.
That conflict is she's leaving. She has to go back home.
Yeah, exactly. So she leaves because she's all upset about this. I feel like I've outstayed my welcome. I'm interfering with your life. And he says, you have made my life so much better. And then she says, I need to go home now. And he says, don't go. But again, all of that could have basically happened even if she was just leaving.
Yeah.
You didn't need this girlfriend. So then the sister tries to stop her, and she brought her over coffee cake, and she's all saying, Joe, do something. And then they kind of have like a long hug. Don't go.
Yes.
And then he's with his dog and he's like, I miss her too, buddy.
Yes.
And so, then she's struggling, and then she this little light of mine book, because we'd seen him singing that song earlier in the movie. And so she finally calls her mom, and she says, I know it was hard for you. Or her mom says, I know it was hard for you as a kid, and that's my fault. I don't want you to spend your life pushing away every person who wants to be close to you. It's time to try something different. And then so then she says it's time to try something different. I would love to spend Christmas with you. She invites her to Bethlehem, and she's like, I'll explain later. And so that was very sweet, very sweet. And then so she goes back to Bethlehem, and she's there at the service, the Christmas service, and they sing "Oh Holy Night," which if you listen to the podcast, I'm always like, because it's such a hard song, very difficult, but this girl nailed it. She did a great job.
Yeah.
In the choir, and he's not there, and then he's like looking for somebody or whatever. It was cute.
Yes. That was really sweet when she's looking her. Yeah. She's looking for him, and he knows it too, which I love.
It's really good. So then this is when we get the big conversation between her and her mom after. Sorry for being so distant, especially lately. I felt like a failure after my marriage ended. And I do think that that's something that a lot of divorced viewers will really connect with, because I can imagine that they also have moments where they feel that way.
Right.
And
I think so many of us, like, we fear being judged. We don't want to be judged. And yet we know that we fall short. Like, all of us fall short in certain areas. And even if it wasn't our fault that something happened, or, in this case, it wasn't necessarily her fault that her marriage fell apart. And yet, if she had been invested differently, would it have turned out differently? Like, you're second guessing, you're asking yourself all these questions. And it's like, at the end of the day, like, I think it was so relatable for me to hear her say, like, I don't want to be judged. I was afraid of, that you would judge me for this. And it's like, man, I feel that, because I just think all of us sit there in times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the church for perfect people would be pretty empty.
Very empty. Very empty.
That's the whole point.
Yes.
That's the whole point.
Right.
And so she kind of had placed, I think she sort of placed some of the blame or her anger and other things like on her mother, and she needed to be able to forgive her mom, and so that's what she was able to do. And I just love, like I said, I absolutely just loved this line, "You were the best part of my life." Because she realizes, oh my gosh, you think that I resented you.
Right.
And she says, "You were the best part of my life. You were worth the hard. You were worth the struggle."
Yeah.
That was very good.
Yes.
And then when she introduces the baby, and I did not know that Natalie meant Christmas.
I did not either.
I have never heard that.
was going to look that up to confirm that, but I didn't. So I'm going to go with it and say
Yeah,
I love
sure.
it. I think that's
Why
great.
not? I mean, I guess nativity,
Yeah.
maybe that's a similar route. I don't know. But she says, you are perfectly capable. You are not going to do this on your own.
Mhm.
And then they have this tradition of taking the family photo and having this this party or whatever in the barn.
Yeah.
And he says that there's more souls to the family in nativity, and a lot of times in movies they kind of that like they kind of act like, okay, so and so has to pick like which of the parents that they're going to which one's the good parent, which one's, and unless like somebody is toxic and is going to take away the child or whatever, but like for the most part most kids can use more love in their life. I mean, all of us can use more love. There's not like a limit of these are the only people I can love. So.
Right. Or being loved by them means that somebody else has to love me less. Like, exactly.
Yeah. So they get the Christmas photo and it was cute. He was like, can I hold her? And she's like, I'm going to hold her for this one, but you can hold her next year. That was really cute.
Yeah. That was cute. Sweet. And definitely had that sort of, I mean, it wraps it up with a nice bow, but
Hallmark,
it was such a happily ever after moment. And it just,
I like the sounds of that.
I loved Marianne's conversation with her mom. And I thought that was so good. But the whole time I kept thinking, her mom is taking this like a champ. Like, I mean, she was a little taken aback maybe, but like, I was like, I cannot imagine dropping a bomb on my mom. Like, oh, by the way, I adopted a baby.
That's true. I would be pretty emotional. That's true.
I just was like, I don't.
Yeah, but some people just aren't criers,
Yeah, that's true.
I am like Public Waterworks. I mean, I cry in like commercials. It's ridiculous.
Yes.
But some people, my mom isn't like a huge crier. She's not like unemotional, but she doesn't cry that much. So it just depends on the person. But the writing was so good in those scenes, and that it really worked. I thought quite well. Yeah. And then they have that. We'd have to seal it somehow. Our agreement, seal it with a kiss.
I thought that was a little cheesy.
It was really cheesy.
I was like, oh, guys, but I love cheese, so I'm, I was happy for it.
So there we go. That is Miracle in Bethlehem. What would you give it out of 5 crowns? What would you give it?
4.5.
Yeah, I think I might give it like, I'd give it like a 3.75, maybe even a 4. For what it was trying to do, I think it was very successful. It does lose points for the girlfriend. I thought that was terrible. And in some of the on the nose things that I don't think needed to be there, just like they just need like a little bit more confidence in their storytelling.
Right.
But the good parts were really, really good. And the casting was good. And the overall message, I think, was really good.
Yes.
So I did enjoy it. Probably more than I expected. I don't know what I gave it in the preview, but it was better than I thought it would be.
For me, it was better than I thought it would be as well. And I think a big part of that was the humor that was woven throughout. I was not expecting that. I guess I went in thinking it was going to be pretty serious.
Yeah.
There were just great humorous moments. Like when the baby's crying at night and keeping Joe and Donkey up. And then, flash forward and they're sleeping and they're both wearing headphones, like the headphones on the dog. I just was roaring. I was like, that's classic. Just a few things like that where it was like, oh, this was really unexpected. But I'm with you. Like, I want them to have confidence in their storytelling because I thought the story overall was really strong.
Yeah. Well, let us know what you think of Miracle in Bethlehem, PA. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section or on Twitter. And if people want to follow you, Liz, how do they do that and how they get the books and everything?
Yeah. So my website is lizjohnsonbooks.com. And all of my social media is at Liz Johnson Books. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm very rarely, but sometimes on Twitter now, X. So whatever. But you can find me and find all my information on my website, lizjohnsonbooks.com.
Right. Very good. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast, the Hallmarkies Pod and the Hallmarkies Podcast. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews, 5 stars. It really helps us a lot. It helps people to find the podcast, the more reviews we have. And if you're watching YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Most of our viewers aren't subscribers. So if you're in that camp, please subscribe. It really helps the algorithm a lot. And check out our Patreon group. It's so much fun. You can be part of watch-alongs and Q&As. Get to hear the behind the scenes of how these movies are made. I think you really will find it worth your investment. You get weekly exclusive reviews and get to be part of the Facebook group. It's, I think, a very worthwhile Patreon to join, and we sure appreciate it. And then we have the merch store where you can get tons of fun Hallmark Hardee's postables, inspired designs. You got I'm a Hallmark Girl shirts. So check that out. We'd really appreciate it. And thanks so much. And I wish you a very, very Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thank you
Bye,
so much.
everyone.